here's the first 5 shots out of that rifle. Phenomenal group already. The question is, how much more accurate is a build like this compared to a typical PRS build? First, let's see how this thing was made. What's up, folks, and welcome back to the Eagle's Nest. I have a pretty cool build up we're going to do today, perhaps the most accurate 22 that I could build, and we're doing this on a Voodoo V22 single shot action. Alright, so you're probably wondering why this action's on the lathe, and pretty simple. When you buy these actions, they're pretty much like a tumbled finish, and I do have my secret tool here for polishing, and that is a Works knife sharpener. It's a belt sander. It does have a 220 grit sandpaper on here, and essentially all I'm doing is spinning it on centers, as you can see here, and working the belt sander to get a nice uniform finish. I'm going to try to match the finish of the action to the barrel, so that's essentially what I'm doing. Alright, so kind of hard to see with the camera here, but the action itself has a nice kind of a satin finish. I'm going to finish off the barrel the same kind of finish here. Again, this is 220 grit sandpaper. Sometimes I put a really high polish finish, but it does cause a lot of glare. So this is the reason why I went with this finish, and it's going to look very good with the Macmillan Kestrel stock that's in black. So headspace is very critical for accuracy, and I took the actual firing pin assembly off the actual bolt itself. And actually what I do is I like to preload a little bit on top of the gauge and get any kind of slop whatsoever on the cam or the bolt itself. And I'm measuring 1 inch 778 thou. So that is from the top of the receiver face all the way to the bolt face. Now let's measure top of the bolt head itself. Okay, so top of the bolt head is 1 inch 734 thou. Subtracting 1 inch 778 minus this gives me a headspace of 43 thou. So in order for me to build this barrel and have the 43 thou headspace, I have to have it to where it butts up the breech of the barrel right into the bolt head itself. So we have to get this within 1 thou to get the 43 thou, and kind of taking a factor of a little bit of a crush when screwing down the action. So the barrel we're going to use today is a Krieger. Now I hand sorted this thing out. It is extremely straight. It's a straight contour 120. We're going to finish this thing at 26 inches. I got the barrel indicated right on the lands and grooves within, I'd say, half a 10 thou. So what we're going to do now is face off the barrel and do the chamber job. Alright, timing the curvature of the bore to the action. This is in the focus. That's the high side. That should be at 6 o'clock. And you can see right here, when I torque the action down, it will be right at 6, right about there. And the low side, right about there, which is marked up here. So you can see very close to the action. So like I said, when I torque this down, it's going to move over maybe right about here, so very close. And like I said, I timed the curvature of all of my builds. I believe, in my opinion, I believe it does make a big difference for 22 accuracy. As far as the threads, Voodoos need to be a little bit on the looser side, that way it doesn't bind up on you. There's no internal coating, so you can see here there's very minimal play. Kind of hard to show in the video, but very minimal. I mean, it's a very snug fit. You want to have pretty much have to use a little bit of force to turn. It doesn't really turn freely. There's a small relief cut there on the back side of the shoulder, and I did leave a little bit of a ring, which is the inside diameter of the action itself here. So the single shot Voodoo V22 is actually kind of a weird extraction system. It's more like a V, as you can see here. So I just finished up cutting the extractor relief cuts, and we're gonna give this thing a try for a final test fitment. Make sure that this thing closes like it should. I want to show you guys basically how this thing operates. So like I said, just did 5 shots out of this rifle. I'm using a Seb Mini Res, and let me go ahead and run 5 shots on the top left coordinate of this target, and then we'll switch over to the target cam. So This rifle is really meant to be shot off a bench, free recoil, and barely manipulated. So let me see if I can simulate this. A couple things I'm trying out is the free recoil first, and then give it a little bit of shoulder. So this barrel actually has a tight chamber. I'm unable to extract live rounds, which I can already tell it does want to be a little bit shouldered the way it is. But if I put a round in there, chambered it, you can see that it doesn't extract a live round. The chamber is tighter. It's a Benchrest chamber, something I designed myself, and it's designed around a Lapua and SK ammo. Unfortunately, it doesn't work well with some of the semi-autos as well, because it is tighter. Kind of feeds a little bit funky. So let me go ahead and get the target cam up and running, show you guys what this thing is doing.
Troubadour.
Well guys, this thing is a flipping hammer. I think this client's going to be extremely happy. I'm really happy to see how it performs right now. So the last 5 shots, I did have one drop way low. That was definitely the ammunition. It definitely sounded funky. So kind of disappointing to have really expensive ammunition when it's like $18 a box. Cost a couple flyers. Other than that, it's freaking shooting phenomenal. There's a couple really tight bug hole groups, definitely shooting in the 2s, perhaps the 1s. Maybe one group of those are in the double O's. But that's essentially all 50 rounds, first 50 rounds out of that rifle. Starting from the first group again, this was me sighting in the rifle, then testing out free recoil, next 5 shots. This was the next 5 shots after I let it cool down, so kind of a cold bore shift. You can see that this was the first shot and the rest of it grouped up. And after it warmed up, because of the tight bore, you can see those things are hammering. Those are 5 shots on all of these groups. Especially that one, that's a 5-shot group. That one's probably the tightest group, probably in the double O's. And here's the last 5, one dropped down low as a flyer. But you can see the performance of this rifle, 26-inch barrel, the Benchrest build. That's the kind of performance that I typically see on these builds. The main thing I want to know is how much more accurate is this thing compared to like a PRS build. So this rifle is my PRS rig that me and my boys shoot. It is a Rim X action and a custom paint job. This is a MPA BA hybrid chassis. It does have a little bit of weights in the front. That's L3I machine. That's the new brass weights that they have. It does have a carbon fiber barrel. So my kids, obviously being young, didn't want to have a really heavy rifle. This one still, as it's configured, weighs 12 pounds. Still considered a little bit heavy, but they're able to manage it. And then I've been trying to chase down a carbon fiber barrel that works. I've tried 5 different ones, and this is the only one out of that same manufacturer that seems to shoot all right. So it's not the best accuracy that I've seen compared to a lot of my Rim X builds that I've done. However, it does shoot very well. The scope that I'm using is a Validata. This is the Mini G2. It's a 4.5 to 28 by 50. And I have right here a thermal suppressors. It's got a RMR red dot on top. And he does sell these little sight heights right here, help you get your target acquisition. And you're able to put your LRA Senate unit on the side. So we are still shooting Lapua super long range, except this one is going to be magazine fed. So typical 10 round Rim X mag, and we'll give this thing a shot, 50 yards, and let's do a comparison. So some guys like to brag on social media, Instagram and Facebook, that their rifle shoots this at all times. It's a sub quarter-inch shooter, when realistically, this is their performance. So I hope you guys respect the fact that I show exactly how it is. Now this rifle is my competition shooter, and to be honest, the guys that are chasing groups like this at 50 yards aren't necessarily the ones winning the matches. Now, what I'm looking for my competition PRS or NRL 22 rig is consistency. And this is what it brings. From cold bore, it shoots that. And throughout the whole groups, this is what it shoots. So is this good enough for PRS or NRL 22? Abso-freaking-lutely. You can compete at the top level if you're shooting a 0.35, 0.4, or even a 0.5 inch group. As long as your rifle's consistent and you know your dope and your holdovers, you can compete with the rifle shooting like this. Now, is this the best Remex I've ever built? No. Typically I see a lot better performance. Then again, I'm taking some compromises using a carbon fiber barrel. And the carbon fiber barrel, at least from my experience, doesn't really shoot as well as a full contour bull barrel or MTU contour stainless steel. So guys ask me all the time, can you build me a carbon fiber barrel, you know, to hold my shop's accuracy standards? I typically say no, because it's hard to get the 0.35 guarantee that I actually guarantee at 50 yards. So in regards to the Benchrest build, every person has a different discipline of shooting, and I tailor these rifles to perform at that type of shooting. So the Benchrest build isn't as consistent on the first like 10-15 shots, as you can see. But it starts hammering after it warms up. Now, Benchrest or small bore F class that are shooting IBI league or ARA targets typically have sighters that they can shoot, warm up the rifle, then shoot for a score. So when I build these ARA Benchrest style small bore F class builds, they typically have longer barrels. They're heavy bull barrels. They're typically Krieger barrels because I'm able to source them out with a tighter bore and get them really straight. And this is what they perform. They will shoot a sub 0.2 inch group consistently. And as you can see here, even with the first 50 shots out of that rifle, comparing it to the PRS rig, the performance at 50 yards is pretty good. At 100 yards, you should expect to see a little bit tighter groups as well. So for the folks that are trying to get their PRS rigs to shoot Benchrest accuracy, like I said, the guys that are chasing the groups aren't the ones winning the matches. What you want to do in practice for your PRS rig is how well you can shoot this kind of group on a positional shot. Practice off barricades, practice off a tank trap, get in different positions to see how well you could get your point of aim and point of impact as tight as possible. Also, shooting long range, 100-yard groups are going to really help you out. If you can't hold a 1-inch group at 100 yards, then you probably won't be able to shoot some of the courses of fire that perhaps have a KYL rack at that distance. So I would test your rifle, personally for me, this is my opinion, test your rifle at 100 yards. See if you can hold a KYL rack, put 10 rounds in your magazine, and see if you can clear a whole KYL rack. If you can, then try a positional and see what you can do there. Well, folks, what do you think of the F-Class build? That thing's a complete track driver. If you guys want a rig like that, perhaps you're just shooting nothing but Benchrest and you want a really stupid accurate 22, I could do that for you. Reach out to desertprecisiongunworks.com. We could build you one just like that. There's other alternatives on chassis and stocks that we could maybe perhaps lower the cost. Something like that costs around $4,000. It is definitely not cheap. It is completely all out, the best I could do as of right now. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you guys in the next video.